Welcome back to Residing in North Idaho. In today's video, we are going to discuss new construction versus resale, used, whatever you want to call them, old versus new. What's the difference? We're seeing a ton of buyers getting into the new construction game, and we're going to break down why we think that is. So if this video sounds interesting, stick around. We got tons of great information. Hey, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and tap the notifications bell so you can stay up to date on all of our latest content. And we put out a ton of content. And remember, you're looking to move right now or 12 months from now, give us a call, text, or email. We would love to help you guys make that smooth move right here to North Idaho.
So today, what we want to talk to you about is the benefits and the drawbacks of whether or not you want a new home or a used home. There's a lot of factors that come into play if you're considering a new home build versus something that already exists in an established neighborhood. There's cost, negotiation, a lot of things. We're going to talk about those. The first thing we're going to talk about today, number one, is the cost difference between a new home build and an existing home. So I will tell you that the cost difference at a surface level can look completely different because there's some things that people have to take in consideration. Most of your new homes that you're going to get, number one, they're going to exclude some items that people are really keen to, and that is backyard landscaping, fencing, privacy, those types of things. That is a big issue for a lot of people that want to have privacy in their home and have that outdoor space. So if you're looking into a new home, consider the cost of actually putting in a backyard, putting in fencing, and those types of things, depending on the builder that you choose. We can obviously guide you towards the builders that do provide those, but a lot of them don't. So if the price looks a little low, consider those in mind as well. The other big thing that we talk about with the initial cost purchase is what you're actually getting. For a new home, you get a lot less land normally than some other homes. If you're looking at a tract home, things are getting tighter and tighter. It's not uncommon to see 0.15 or 0.18 acre lots.
That's not a lot of room for Fido to run around in the backyard, but some people don't seem to care about that. So that could be a good option for some. And yes, as you mentioned, is it Hayden Homes that does the backyards?
They do on some.
Yeah. So it's hit or miss. And we always have to plug this because we've had a few clients lately go directly to a builder and not use us for that transaction. And we just want to remind people that we do new builds. It's always better to have your own representation when you're in a real estate contract. And that is the same thing. You're in a real estate contract. So bringing us on board, we do these a lot. Dave's like the new build master up here in North Idaho. We have the experience. We can help you guys through that process. We've done tons of builder meetings, and it's just good to have someone that has your back that understands the process.
And that's another thing. When you're talking about cost difference, one of those things, and I think we're going to highlight this a little more, is incentives. Some builders, depending on what lender you use or what program you go for, they do offer incentives. Those are a lot of things that we stay up to bat for, or stay up to snuff on.
Go to bat for
what I'm saying.
Whatever. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But do know that the big thing too with cost difference is that there's very little negotiation with a new home. New homes typically are standard spec. You'll be able to pick some options depending on where in the new build you are, but there's very little negotiating on the actual price. Builders typically will not drop the price until a home is completed and sits on market for 30 days, which is very, very rare. So with a home that already exists, you do have a lot more negotiating ability.
And there's a couple builders up here that will do incentives for first responders as well. So that's a big one. We can save you a few $1,000. You can put that towards, upgrades or things like that. And it will definitely help the value of your home. On that note, when it comes down to builders meetings, it's having one of us there. We've sat through a lot of these now. We know the things to look for, like, hey, don't forget to ask. Maybe you want to upgrade and have a gas line on your back porch for the barbecue, or, the extended garage. So we can kind of help talk you through that stuff so you understand all of those upgrades. Number two thing to consider is customization options. Obviously, when you're looking at a resale or used home, it's not coming customized. It's coming the way it is. And you're relying on the previous owner on their style, right? And maybe it's great. Totally cool. A lot of times it's not. And it's, 1970s threw up all over the inside of that house. So, and some people like that, right? Maybe you want that because you want the opportunity to put your own finishing touches on it. That's fine. But for new builds, you do have some customization options. A lot of these spec homes, there's not a lot. You can choose between this finish, and this finish, or these paint colors, maybe countertops, things like that. Garage size. There's a little bit you can work with within there. And, to be honest, a lot of people like that. Too many choices, right? And what is it? Paralysis by analysis or something. Like you'll overthink it and you'll lose your mind. But if you have 5 options, like you can pick a good option from that. So that's kind of cool.
Another thing too, most of these builders, and it all depends on budget, right? We have different level builders from economy grade to mid grade, all the way up to, your top of the line builders out here like Rosenberger, Timbered Ridge, Selkirk, things like that, where you go in and you can do a lot more custom options with the home. So each one has its different level of customization. Usually the homes that are more economy priced are a little cheaper. The reason they can do that is because they only allow certain selections. So if you're looking into it and you're considering budget, if really what it comes down to is, do you want to do renovations to a home? Flooring and paint are the two things that we see all the time when people buy a home that's used. And then obviously countertops usually come next, and then other renovations. So if you're going to do something like that, I think a lot of it comes down to, do you want to live in a newer neighborhood or do you want to live in an established neighborhood? Yeah. Number 3 on our list is construction and material quality. So when we talk about this, obviously we know that homes back in the past, homes in pre-70s, they were built with rough cut timber a lot of times. They were built with size and strength, where now most of the strength in your home is engineered strength. And obviously to keep costs down, we've found ways to limit cost to build homes. So if you're one of those people that likes rough cut timber, you're the one that likes cut and stack, you're the one that wants a roof that's probably been there for 40 years and it's always going to be, then you may not want to consider new construction. Pretty much everything new construction is going to be trusses. It's going to be just a different type of build than your older homes.
And unless you get into, we're talking new construction now, unless you get into the higher price, the very custom stuff, you're not going to get that character for the most part, like you will with some of the older homes. Like if you go find a home in the Garden District here in Coeur d'Alene, an old Craftsman, those things are awesome. And yeah, you're going to have some issues with it, of course, to upgrade the functionality of it, right? The HVAC system, things like that. But the character of the home, that is very hard to reproduce with new construction unless you're getting into, the super custom end homes.
And the other thing to keep in mind with an already existing home, if you're going to buy an older home because you like the character and you know that it was built strong, the only things you really want to look out for are plumbing and electrical. Those should be updated. We have a lot of 1900s homes downtown Coeur d'Alene, and if the electrical and the plumbing hasn't been updated or serviced, that can lead to an issue.
Number 4, let's talk about energy efficiency and sustainability. So these newer homes, they are generally more energy efficient. You've got the appliances that are Gold Star certified.
Yeah, Energy Star.
Energy Star. Hey, thank you. That makes more sense. The installation is done to a higher standard. So you have these codes, and some of the codes are for an actual reason, not just government regulation. And, they are making the homes easier to heat and cool, things like that. So that's a good thing. Now, when you jump into the used home market, sometimes you're going to have to go in there after the fact and do blown in insulation or something to kind of bring that R value up, like in the attic, for example. And as Dave touched on in the last section, plumbing and electrical are big ones. HVAC is another big one. And sometimes it's hard with HVAC depending on the way the house is laid out. So you might have to use mini splits instead of an actual ducted system. So things to consider in that realm as well.
Number 5 is going to be location and community. When I moved to Idaho years ago, we decided on a community that had already been established. That was really important to me. I wanted a little more space. Usually the older communities, you have a little bigger lots, you have a little more breathing room, and I don't hear construction. And all my trees and all the shrubs and everything else in the community is already developed. Schools are already there. Parks are already there. And we love that. We love walking out and seeing the established trees that have been there for 15, 20 years. So for that, something you need to consider is newer construction usually are going to be built up here on prairies. So for your typical family home, your typical $400,000 to $700,000 home, they're going to be in areas that were treed. They're on prairie. So you're going to have new stuff around you. You're going to have new construction. You're going to have new walls. You're going to have new sidewalks. You're going to have new trees, new shrubs, and all that stuff is going to provide way less privacy than in an established neighborhood.
Yeah, you can always tell the age of a neighborhood by the size of the trees on the street, and they're going to be small. They're not going to be those nice big character shade trees that you'll get in, like, say, the Garden District, for example. All right, number 6, availability and move-in readiness. So obviously with a used home, it's going to be available right away, right? That home already exists. It might have been there for 100 years. So you can move right into it once we close on the transaction. With new homes now, sometimes you'll find that gem that is almost complete and you can slide right into it with good timing. Sometimes you'll be 6 months out for a build, potentially more with like a higher end custom home, right? You might be 8 months to a year out
Right. And if you're interested in a new home, it's important to get in contact with us soon because we do establish good relationships with many of the builders up here. And we try to stay up to date to make sure that if we know any spec homes are coming out, I don't know how many times I've been able to sneak into a spec with a client right when it hits the market because I've been in contact with the agents. I know what's going on and we want to make sure that we're looking for what you want. So, we try to stay on top of those things. The other thing is that the buying process for a new home, there are some things you need to consider. One is when you do a new home, you're going to have to put down likely non-refundable earnest. This is probably one of the biggest things for people because on the negotiation process for a home that's out there, the typical in Idaho is 1%. You got a $500,000 home, we're going to offer 5% earnest money, and that is refundable for certain periods of time. With new builds, a lot of times that can range from 2% all the way up to 10% or more that is non-refundable out of the gate. So if you're going to build yourself a really nice home, and you're going to put 10% down on an $850,000 or $900,000 build, you're talking about close to $100,000 that once you start that build, it's gone. If you change your mind later, you've lost that earnest money. So we have to make sure that you've explored your options and you're confident in that build. The other thing I was going to bring up when we're talking about the buying process is obviously Idaho has a really cold winter. So if you buy a home that's going to finish, let's say in November or December, there's a good chance you're going to have what's called holdbacks. Escrow is going to hold some money until the project is complete. Builders may not be able to paint the exterior of your home, which will leave an unfinished home for 5 to 6 months on the exterior, and they may not be able to put down landscaping, sprinklers, just because it's weather dependent. So keep that in mind as well. If you start a new build in April or May, kind of where we're at right now, the potential exists for you to have a delayed finish on that home.
Number 7, warranties and inspections. So these are very important. With a new build, often builders will give a home warranty on it. They'll usually be 1 year bumper to bumper warranty on everything. And then they'll have 3 to 5 years, something like that, foundational and
structural.
Thank you. That's the word.
There's the word.
You read my mind. So that's awesome, right? You've got everything covered. And the way it usually works is right before closing, they'll do what's called a blue tape walkthrough, and we'll walk through with blue tape and highlight all of the little things because there's always going to be something, right? That it's inevitable. You don't expect to buy a new home and not have little things that are wrong with it. It might be a scuff on the cabinets. It might be some paint that's off. Whatever. We'll go through and blue tape everything. They'll fix it before it closes or sometimes right after. That's fine.
I was late for my blue tape walkthrough this morning. Sorry, Eric and Hannah.
Ooh, my bad. And then often they'll do at like 11 months, right before that 1 year warranty expires, they'll do another walkthrough with you and kind of pick out all the little details that need to get fixed over that time. So that is a great feature with new construction. I'll touch on inspections as well too. We often recommend that our clients get a third-party inspection prior to closing on that. The builders are very good up here in general, but still sometimes things get missed that are outside of code, and having a third-party inspector come in, they'll call them out on it before it closes. They'll fix it, and it kind of just resolves those issues beforehand, which is kind of nice.
Yep. And the big thing you want to look for is I've had inspectors on new construction find mold, those types of things. It's a health hazard for your family. We want to make sure that gets taken care of. The other thing with inspections is that for an inspection on an existing home is going to reveal a ton of issues. It's a used home. They are not brand new. I'll taper your expectations. We look at these all the time, and sometimes it can look like the house is going to fall apart. Most of the time, our inspectors are looking for possibility, not probability. So we usually go through the inspections with you. We help you highlight the things that could be a life safety hazard, a health hazard, and those are things that we want to put back on the seller. Warranties for used homes, for existing homes. Your North Idaho agent, all of us, we've decided that we're making sure that every one of our clients that buys a home gets a home warranty. So if you're not buying a new home, one thing that we do offer our clients is we do always make sure that there is a home warranty. Now, whether it's coming from the seller or whether we purchase it as well, we think it's really important that you have that peace of mind going into purchasing your home. So that is something that's really important to us, but we try to make sure that you do have a home warranty, whether it is going to be on a new construction or existing construction. Number 8 is going to be market trends and resale values. So one thing to know about new construction is if you can buy new construction towards the end of a development. So if they're developing Montrose, let's say, Greenstone is working on them right now over in Post Falls, and you get the last home built in that community, it is pretty typical across the US. This is a different statistic, but it's pretty typical that when the last home goes, the values go up anywhere from 3 to 10% in that community because there's nothing left. That community is now full, and now people trying to get into that community can't get in. So values typically go up at the end of a project. During the middle of a project, you're going to be all over the place with the price of your home. Don't expect some major appreciation until that development is done. The other thing is from an investment standpoint, the one thing about new homes is typically they're outliers. There's not a lot of new homes that are within the proximity of the developed neighborhoods. So if you want to look at increased value, dirt is the biggest thing that you can put your money into. And the closer the dirt is to city center, the beach, those areas, you're going to have appreciation down the road. Everybody else is going to continue to move further out with this new construction, but existing construction that's close to town will always hold more value.
All right, number 9, financing options. The beauty with new construction is they often have incentives, and there are also loan incentives. So they'll often have a preferred lender that they work with, and that lender will give you an incentive back for using them to do the purchase of that new construction. I was actually talking to another lender about this yesterday, and this is an important point. Sometimes they sneak some hidden fees in there, I realized. So it is important to get another quote as well. It can be a really good deal, but just usually get another quote from a lender just to see, because sometimes they might sneak something in there.
Yep. A lot of that comes down to they've gone away from purchasing, buying down a loan sometimes, but in the actual origination fees, all of a sudden they've gone up. So be careful with that too. If you see a rate that's way lower than another lender, there's probably a reason why it is. And it's probably because you're paying upfront lending fees that are not considered a buy down, but instead the origination cost went from $1,000 to $10,000. So it is good to shop around lenders. We have a ton of them, and it's good for them to compare. You got to know what you're getting.
This is why, if you call us and you're like, hey, I'm pre-approved through Rocket Mortgage, I'm like, cool. Let's talk to a local lender too. We get no kickbacks from local lenders. We just know and trust them that they'll get the job done well and take good care of our clients.
I'm not silly about that. I had one come over and cook me dinner once at my house. That was pretty cool.
Really? Is that a kickback?
Well, no, but it was a good dinner.
I'll take that. But my point is, hey, at least get a second quote from someone local, because like Dave said, some of those bigger companies that are national, they will sneak fees into there. So ultimately it's not as good a deal as it looks, or you're not going to actually get the rate that they're advertising.
The last one we want to talk about, number 10, is risk factors. So there's a risk factor with a new home that's pretty significant, and there's some significant risk factors with an existing home. The new home, one of the biggest risk factors with a new home is the fact that completion is not guaranteed. You may plan to move in there in August and it may not be done until December. So this is frustrating. I've seen it happen before. They can only go by so many timelines, and there's even little points in their contract. I know one home builder up here, if you read all the fine print in there, they actually have up to 1.5 years after completion date to finish your home. So if supply goes up, lumber goes up, things change for them, or they can't get items, they actually have up to 1.5 years to complete your home sometimes. So just keep that in mind. This is really, really important with new construction, because if you're tied in with non-refundable earnest money and everything else, and something like COVID happens again, you could be sitting out for quite a while. Your new home will still happen, but you're going to get delayed. That's one of the biggest things with new construction.
Yeah, with older homes now, there are risks with that as well. Even if you get that inspection, which we will always recommend that you do, an inspector can't access all parts of the building. Like, he can't tear sheetrock off of walls to look for mold. They're pretty good at finding things or seeing indicators in other places, but it's just something to keep in mind. There is always that risk there, even with an inspection, or the roof. It could be perfectly fine, but within, a year now you're dealing with leaking issues and you're going to have to replace that roof. So that's why having a home warranty can be very beneficial for you. I had a client recently, they bought a new home and the tub leaked within a week of them moving in. And thankfully they had a home warranty and it did actually cover that repair of the tub and sheetrock. So that was kind of good.
So last thing to remember, if you're looking into new construction, we can help you, and we can go through all the builders, but call us because we can help you identify a builder that's going to work within your budget and what you're actually trying to find. And then we stay on top of the incentives, the lenders that are involved, and the other things that you could benefit from by buying a new home.
Hey, I hope you guys got some great value out of this video, and I hope you enjoy the new studio. We just finished it up. Still smells like paint in here. And remember, guys, if you're looking to move right now or 12 months from now, give us a call, text, or email. It'll be either me, Dave, or our partner Eric answering that phone or text or email for you, and we will get you well taken care of. Thanks again, guys.